I have to admit, I used to be a little bit of a book snob. I wouldn't even consider a Kindle, let alone an audiobook. It just felt like cheating. But that is until I tried Audible and Open Audible. Ever wonder where I find the time to read all the books that my guests have written on this show? Well, this is the answer. When I'm behind in my reading, I just jump to audiobook. Open Audible is a cross-platform audiobook manager designed for Audible users that can allow you to download, view, manage, and connect your favorite audiobooks on MP3 so that you can enjoy them across all your devices. Best of all, you can control it all from a desktop application. I'm giving away a copy of Open Audible for the entire month of November. All you have to do is sign up to my mailing list. You'll find the link in the description below, or go to openaudible.org for more information. Today's podcast is sponsored by the guys in the flag jackets. Gary and Jim are the guys in the flag jackets. Every week, these two sit down and discuss a wide variety of political issues, all the way from the weird and wonderful world of local politics to more obscure political ideas and concepts. Ever wondered about the 1979 Chicago mayoral election? Well, I hadn't either until these guys came along and blew my mind. Or did you know that the layout of the ballot can have a crazy influence upon the way you vote? Neither did I, but thankfully Gary and Jim were there to tell me all about it. So if you want a fun and intriguing look into US politics from a unique perspective, check out the Guys in the Flag Jackets podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find the link in the description below. So, hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Chatter. Today I'm here with Aid Thompsin. Aid, you are political hectorer, TikToker, man that has a podcast entitled Aid Thompsin and Other Disappointments. So yeah, man, welcome to the show.
Welcome to you, to your own show. Yes. No, it's nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, we got in eventually, being locked outside. That was fun.
Yeah, I felt like, because I was sort of slumped and like leaning against the window, waiting for you to turn up. I was worried that the girl that was inside, who ended up letting us in, thought that I was just like hammered and like, you know, slumped against the window. But yeah.
Which you are, but you know, that was...
Yeah.
You're still meant to be in here.
I was slumped against the window, but not hammered yet. So yeah.
Well, yes, with my coffee and my green tea.
Sure.
We can get drunk off of political excitement.
Intoxicated by stimulating conversation. Yes.
That's probably a better way of putting it. So I first spotted you, I don't know, just because I try to keep an eye on people in the UK who have politics related podcasts.
Sure.
Generally, because I like to see how the space is developing.
Yeah.
And we did chat about digital currency and social credit scores, and you basically had pointed out that you thought that this was inevitably the way it's going to go.
Yeah.
So why do you think that's inevitable?
I think when you look at where tech... So I work in tech, right? I don't just sort of shout from the sidelines in the political sphere 24/7. My day job is within the tech space. And I've seen tech advancing, and I've seen capitalism advancing with it. I just think when you've got something like digital currency that makes the lives of so much of the population easier, and there's sort of 2 or 3 upticks to it, I just think you don't really stand much of a chance pushing back on it and saying, I don't want to go in that direction, when you've got enterprise, you've got small businesses, you've got all of these overheads attached to cash, where you're going to have to convince them to pay more and live more awkwardly to satisfy your concerns about digital currencies that they may not be up to speed with. So I feel like industrially, because of the convenience factor, it will just move in that direction anyway. It doesn't mean I necessarily think it's a great, flawless idea, but I just think that is probably where we're headed.
It's do you think it has to be a government controlled digital currency? Because that's where the real discussion comes.
The concern is,
yeah.
Do I think it needs to be government controlled? No, probably not. If it were to be government controlled, and I'm positive the government would like control of it.
Oh yeah, I think you can say that again.
I mean, you only have to look at the hysteria around things like Bitcoin over the last sort of 7 years to see how frightened they are. And I think, am I right in saying Bitcoin's still banned in China?
Yeah,
completely.
Thanks, China. It made it way more renewable energy friendly.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
So
they were burning coal plants to run it, and
yeah,
now it's like 70% renewable energy.
yeah. Well, thanks, China. Yeah. I mean, like, I just feel like the fright that was attached to it and the hysteria that was wrapped around it tell you everything that you need to know in terms of what they want to maintain or instill control over. I don't think it's necessary that government have control over it. I'd like to see, like, when Bitcoin first started bubbling up, I jumped on it, and I made a lot of money in the space of about like 6 months, and then I got fucking stung. Like it was so embarrassing. I wasn't going to talk about this tonight, but now I suppose it is sort of linked in with digital currency and cashlessness. So here's what happened, right? So I got really excited about Bitcoin. I worked in tech, so I heard about it reasonably early on. I thought, you know what? I don't have loads of capital to throw into this, but what I will do is every time I was going to go and get a coffee from the little barista thing, instead of doing that, I'll put 250 on my app and bought Bitcoin with it. And because I drink so much fucking coffee, over the space of like a month, 2 months, 6 months, like this sort of £250 initial deposit over the first month, like I said, lots of coffee, fucking ballooned. Like it went up to like £1,200, £1,300, which, you know, we're not talking ludabucks here, but that's enough to make your eyes like widen and go, okay, this is interesting. So then I started bragging to my girlfriend about it, going like, I put this money into Bitcoin and like, this could be our spending money for our holiday. Like we're going to have a baby and, well, did end up having a baby. And the day before we were due to fly out to the south of France for this sort of baby moon, like last holiday before baby comes along. The license from the credit card company or the debit card was stripped with no notice. Like Visa just said, no, you can't operate within this space. That money I could not touch it. It was just sat in this account. I had to pay a guy to transfer, like it was a real rigmarole to have it transferred into this and then put through SEPA over into this account and then converted back. I lost about half that money. And it just made me think, oh, this is fucking ridiculous. Like, I'm not doing that again. Anyway, look, that's a really roundabout way of...
Not your
saying,
keys, not your coins, man.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people have learned that lesson very hard in the last month.
Sure.
FTX going down, BlockFi, Binance is next.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyone that's still operating on those exchanges is a moron. Not even operating on it, just keeping their money on it.
Yeah, but then where do you sit on that? So if you're sort of anti-cashless and then you see something like FTX go down, are you like, well, that wouldn't be government-controlled cashless, so therefore I'm supportive of it? Or are you like, it's cashless, so I don't like it, so I'm glad it went down?
So there's many levels to my feelings about this.
Right.
I think that basically everything that isn't Bitcoin is a shitcoin, and it's a Ponzi scheme scam set up by people to make a lot of money.
Right.
Apart from a couple of ones that were literally just set up for fun. I even think that the Ethereum token is a backdoor into these central bank digital currencies because it's being set up to be the basis for a lot of the ones that are being trialed. And it's centrally controlled. Some guy, like, they've just decided to go... The problem with most of them is that they're proof of stake, right? Which means that your ability to make money off of them is based on your ability to have money to put into it in the first place, which is just the financial system we have now. It's no different, right? The proof of work that comes along with Bitcoin, like BTC, is like you have to have the computing power and you have to run the miners to crack your code, and like at least it's based on something physical.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just, oh, well, we made up like this coin. We made up this coin.
Yeah.
And we're just going to set the value and we own 70% of it. So sweet. You know, which is Ethereum. So it's, and the FTX thing, like, I am really not convinced that this wasn't a way to backdoor get into regulating the crypto market.
Right.
Because Sam Bankman-Fried was like on the stage with all of the worst people that you can possibly imagine. Bill Clinton, Tony Blair.
Yeah.
Like big friends with fucking Gary Gensler, who's the head of the SEC.
Yeah.
He's getting like these lavish, wondrous think pieces still.
Right.
Like after he's lost all these people's money written
Yeah.
by the New York Times.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh well, he didn't know what he was doing. He was just in over his head. And he's like, bitch, he's lost people billions. Like,
poor thing.
so I'm not
Yeah.
convinced that they didn't let these things go and run, knowing that they would collapse.
Yeah.
Or at least they failed to regulate them because they thought, oh, well, you know, if it all falls apart, great, then we have a good reason to regulate it. Because people didn't want them to go into that market.
Are you naturally quite suspicious?
Yes.
Are you? Yeah.
I used to be way less suspicious
Right.
of the government, and generally just I was way more naive. And now I'm just like who is trying to fuck me here?
Right. Right.
So it's like
Like the meme of the guy off It's Only Sunny.
Yeah.
Like, wait, right. Okay. Cool.
literally,
Yeah.
like it's not even like that crazy. Like I'll entertain anything, right? What I actually believe is like it's very difficult to pin me down on, but I don't like the idea of the government having control of the money.
Yeah.
And because they fucked it. Like the
Yeah.
last
So-
40 years has been them, and this is the reason I don't want the central bank digital currency. Like even if you put aside the control programmable aspect of it, right, and the link into the digital ID and the social credit system, you put that aside, even though like the Tories are very, very, very rapidly heading down that road,
Right.
especially with the new.
You must be mistaken because I'm sure they're all libertarians. Right?
Oh yes, of course. Fucking pieces of shit trying to pretend like they don't want a government while pillaging it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so like even aside from like they're very concerned in protest bills. Over the last 40 years, 50 years since the pound and the dollar became decoupled from gold, since it was just like we'll just print whatever and there's no back into it.
Yeah.
That, in my mind, has been the thing that has been destroying our economy since Thatcher.
Mm-hmm.
And it came along with a bunch of like deregulation and like heavy amounts of privatization and like this horrible neoliberalism that we've been fucking stuck with ever since. But the main problem is that they just printed it endlessly, right? Especially over the past 10 years. They've added more than £1 trillion to the money supply in Britain.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone wonders why we have such massive inflation.
Yeah.
And like it's
Because money's fucking worth less now, right?
Because they've
So
just
you
printed it and
endlessly
printed it and printed it. And if they have control of a digital currency,
Yeah.
then they will just do the same, except they don't even need to go to the Bank of England anymore.
But it's so like cyclical, isn't it? So they
Mm-hmm.
will print endless amounts of money through quantitative easing.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does, because you're cheapening money, you're actually inspiring, let's say, the older generations, like people in their autumn years who are getting chunks of their pension out, don't want that money, that nest egg, to be cheapened. And whereas they may have invested it in bonds or currency even, like back in the day, now they're like, well, hang on a second, I've got to be smart about this, right? Like I don't want my nest egg, my life savings to be watered down, so I'm going to put it in property. And then that's where it starts to become this sort of self-perpetuating problem, because what you're doing then is putting a crunch on the property market, which then becomes more expensive. Money is cheaper, so people are like people are like, how come like inequality is so bad now? I'm like, because of that fucking shit. Like this all started about 20 years ago, and the longer we leave it, the longer we kick the can down the road, the worse it's going to get.
Yeah, and you know, I was talking to a guy last night about this, and I said to him, I've brought this up to a lot of people, like, and mainly sort of older boomer establishment types, right?
Yeah.
But really smart people. Do you know what I mean? Like well read, like they know their history, they know their politics, like they know the system.
Yeah.
They're not naive to the world, right? And I've said to them, it's like, do you see this like ever growing inequality as a problem? Do you see it as a, because like solely from a wanting your heads to remain on your shoulders point of view, like, do you see this as a problem? And most of them just like, why would this be a problem?
Yeah.
And it's like, are you kidding me?
This is what I keep saying to people on my show is like, you can push people so far. Like you can keep like taking this much money away from them in their tax, or you can make houses this much more expensive. You can make their schools shitter and close down more and more hospitals. You can continue to push people further and further into that corner. But eventually, they're going to fucking snap. And you're going to either get violence or, riots. I mean, you're sort of alluding to a full-on sort of revolution or like Gaddafi style ending. I mean, maybe things might get that bad. If it's the choice between starving, watching your kids starve, the bank taking your house, and you sitting out in the rain and freezing to death and watching your nearest and dearest suffering, or like going to Whitehall with a fucking Molotov cocktail, people will make that decision if they don't have anything else to lose,
Yeah, and that's the problem. Like we're pushing so many people so close to the bottom rung of the ladder with no way back up.
Yeah.
And like at some point, people are gonna crack, and they're just gonna decide, well, fuck this. We just flip the table, and then we get chaos, man.
Yeah. Did you see? There was a video going around on Twitter earlier of these kids. This was in California, just walking into the Apple store and just they all had like sort of masks on around their faces and hoods up and shit, but they're just taking shit.
Oh yeah,
just
taking this in San Francisco.
In I don't know specifically where in California it was, but yeah, in an Apple store. And they just snatch iPads, iPhones, take stuff out of people's hands. And the guy that was sharing it was like, look at this lawlessness. These retail staff are not doing anything to fight back. And I'm like, you paying them fuck all. And the police are like, stretched to bed. Like, this is what happens, man. Like when you stretch public services to nothing and you pay people nothing, like, all it will take is somebody in London to see that and go, oh, yeah, like, why are we not doing that? We should do that. Like, And
we can see it now. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And like, well, I think that's probably partially because, like, San Francisco has this rule where you can shoplift $800 of stuff.
Oh, really?
And they won't put you in jail.
Oh, man.
Up to $800.
I'm in the wrong city.
Yeah. That's a real thing, though. I know that sounds
iPhones are just above that.
Yeah, that's what's keeping them high on the price point.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not even letting the people in the factory.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, I think so. To go back to your original thing about like cashlessness and government control, to sort of, I suppose, expand on what you were saying before about where we had deregulation and we decoupled from the bank reserves. I think when people talk about a cashless society, I think they see it conceptually in a binary sense, like, oh, well, we're moving from like £20 notes, £10 notes to just like zapping my Apple Pay. Like, what's the difference? And to a large extent, like, I have some sympathy with that kind of argument because of the history of it. Like, we are not backing up our currency with gold. Like, that is just a fact. We just, like, when you go to the bank and you say, I want to borrow £190,000 to buy this house, the bank don't go like to the Bank of England and go, yeah, can we get another 190 grand here? And the Bank of England don't look to somebody in the Treasury and go, yeah, have we got enough gold there to lend this guy 100? None of that happens. Like, all that happens is a guy like opens his laptop and goes like, you made a sale? Oh, yeah, cool. 190? Yeah, cool. Like that. And they just click, and magically, like, everyone talks about, oh, there's no magic money tree. There fucking is. Like, it's in your high street bank. They press a button and it's just fucking there. You got the money and now you're in debt for another 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Just, the magic money tree is really fractional reserve banking.
Yeah, like, right. And it's the same here. It's the same in the States. And it would be interesting, I think, to me, if we were able to abstract our way from this sort of government cashless society that we operate in now and move into a digital currency that was not state controlled. Now,
also the key for me is that there's a finite amount, because then we can't just like rehypothecate it like we do in
Yeah.
fractional reserve banking, or like when the Bank of England goes, oh lads, oh, yeah, the markets are not looking great. Yeah, just stick another 100 million in right in the top. That'll be fine.
So you mean like Bitcoin, where the algorithm slows down, so it's harder to generate, and so therefore there is this supply and demand, this crunch on it, which makes
But like
the value more
but there
credible.
used to be a finite amount of money.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like that's how
yeah,
it used to work.
yeah,
Like there used to be a finite amount, right? And then we discovered this amazing thing called debt. And then we were like, hang on a second. We can like create debt and build stuff. And then all of a sudden people are like, whoa. And we did some amazing fucking shit with it, right?
yeah,
Some horrible fucked up things too, because that's the one thing that funded all the
yeah,
wars.
yeah. Because some fucking fat, grey-haired white prick in a it's like someone up there, they were like, yeah, if we release this financial instrument, if we release this product out into the market, like people will buy it, right? Yes, of course they will. Okay, cool. Will it entrap generations in debt? Yes, it definitely will do that. Yeah, but I can make a bonus. Kind of like they don't give a fuck. They're just like, how much? Like they would release a product to the market that propelled you and people like you into debt for 50 fucking years,
Yeah.
and you've got no escape from it. They would release that product into the market if they could, if it resulted in a 0.001% uptick in profit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we saw it in 2008, like in America. You know the bit in The Big Short where they're like, have you seen the film The Big
Oh,
Short?
yeah.
So you've seen the bit where they're, what's his name? Steve Carell's character. I think Steve Carell. Steve Carell's character is like, they're asking the two young bankers about like what the loans they've been selling are like, and the guy goes, yeah, I sell ninja loans, no income, no job.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, my best customers are immigrants. They don't care. You just tell them they're getting a home and tell them to sign.
Yeah.
It's like that shit is literally still going on.
Yeah.
Like it didn't stop in 2008. These horribly predatory practices did not stop in 2008. They're still going.
Yeah. Well,
And
the
it's like,
worrying thing
what?
about that is, so after '08, they brought in a load of regulation, and now where we are in departure from the EU, my worry is that with all of this talk of like, well, now we can deregulate, and now we can cut red tape, and now we'll be the Singapore on Thames, we'll be like, I'm like, that's the shit that they're going to do. Like, if they think they can make money, and people are desperate for houses and shit, aren't they? So, like, all it's going to take is an HSBC or a Santander or a Lloyd's to say, here's a Brexit benefit for you. We're going to unleash this new mortgage product to the market that we could have never done in the EU. And now, like, this is your great British new mortgage 2.0. You can go into a mortgage with 5 people now. You can borrow like 13 times your salary. You could, like, it'll be fucking ridiculous. And it'll just like within like, it'll be so bad that in like 5 years we'll be like sinking into another depression or some shit.
God, I hadn't considered that. My whole book was about that. I wrote a book called Brexit, the Establishment Civil War, and the entire conclusion was that they were going to use it to push this hardcore neoliberal, like Milton Friedman free market fucking trash on us. They were just going to give us something, and they'd be like, oh, well, look, everything's... I said there would be a big economic shock, and then they will come along and be like, well, the only way we can fix this really is this thing that we are saying, as they did with Thatcher, as they did with after the '08 one, when George Osborne just came in and conducted a fire sale that would have made the 1980s Tories think that they'd lost their mind. Like, they were shoveling shit out the door as fast as they could for as little money as possible.
I'm always amazed, like when they started talking about austerity, I was like, if this is the solution to this problem, like how fortunate is it for you that the solution to this problem happens to be the thing that you ideologically would fucking wank your dick limp over any other year? Like, fuck the crash. Like, oh, we get to slash back all the public services. Oh, it's amazing. Like, how fortunate.
Yeah, it does concern me that like some of them seem like genuinely sexually aroused at the thought of causing extreme harm to people.
Yeah,
because like, and do you know what it makes? It makes it so difficult for like, I know a bunch of people who would consider themselves like on the right politically, who are so disgusted by these people. Just like they're not conservatives at all. They're just like self-serving, money-grabbing pieces of shit.
Oh, their principles leave the fucking door. Like, whether it is to do with ambition or personal gain. I mean, they are supposed to be the party of fiscal responsibility. We've seen none of that shit.
They're the ones that printed all the the trillion that I talked about that's been printed. That was all of them, literally all them.
But some of that you could bag up and go like, well, maybe they're not economists, maybe they're a little bit. But all of the other shit, like fiscal responsibility, is not like funneling 10 billion to your mate down here. Fiscal responsibility is not fucking. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like how can any Conservative MP utter the phrase fiscal responsibility for the next like 15 years?
Well, they can, but they will endlessly. This is why I don't want Kier Starmer.
Okay, so let's talk about Starmer. So what's your beef?
What's my beef?
What's your beef?
He won't address any of the actual problems. None of them. Zero. Like, and he's flip-flopped on everything.
Yeah.
If he was still back in the same, what was it, like 12 principles or whatever he had when he first...
His pledges.
The pledges, yeah. If he's stuck by the pledges, like, okay, let's see what happens here. But he hasn't stuck by any of them.
Yeah.
I consider, as I've pointed out, I don't like this like endless money printing because I think it's destroying our economy. I think the size of the financial industry is obscene and abhorrent. And honestly, that's to me is the big Brexit bonus. Destroying the size of the financial industry. Fuck yeah! Oh no, we're not the capital of the world for money laundering and figuring out how to get people's money offshore. Oh no, whatever shall we do?
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that really. It's a bit of an uptick, isn't it?
Yeah, and like I think the size of the financial industry is a massive problem for our economy. It takes all the fucking talent away. People who would like maybe otherwise like study physics and go in and do some fucking hardcore engineering, they end up making risk management products.
Yeah. Or working in like back office or commodities analysts, kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean it's to shut down financial services, because I've worked in FS and I'm aware of the huge fucking industrial footprint that it leaves within UK PLC. Like, we are not a manufacturing economy. We're just not. We're a services-based economy, and FS is a huge part of it. So if FS collapses, what then happens to all the people that work in FS? Where do they go? Do they retrain? Do we suddenly make the shift to a manufacturing economy? Does our currency allow that? Are people going to buy the products that our labor produce when we need to pay our labor a higher figure than China or India do? Like, they're super complex questions. I don't relish the idea of having the world capital of money laundering either. But
we do have it. It's not something that like look at in the future that might come. It's like that's it. We are.
I just don't know if I could credibly say that we like radically need to move away from the model that we do at the moment. It would take some sort of government sanctioned like huge programs of like investment in physics, in biochemical research, or in like AI or something. And on that, actually, we could agree. Like, we should be investing huge amounts of money in like tech and development and raising the next generation of software engineers.
Yeah. Just engineers generally. Like, they don't have to be just software engineers.
I'm just speaking selfishly now. I need to hire good guys.
That's
right?
true.
So,
but I mean, that's fair. And I don't see why Britain can't become that.
Yeah.
It's like one of the problems I have with all of the Remainers now is like having written a book about how awful the Leave campaign was, having written a book like that kind of changed my mind about whether it was a good idea to be connected to Europe or not on a permanent long-term basis. I wouldn't, like, if you give me the chance to go back to 2016 and vote again, I'd vote Remain.
Right.
If you give me the chance now, as in like having like if you give me a second vote, I would say like we have to leave, because
that's really interesting.
I think it would cause too much division. I think it would cause so many people to lose faith in the system that it wouldn't be worth it.
You would vote to leave the EU to avoid division? Yes. Wow. But you're talking about like long-term division. I'm talking about short-term, like 5 years of calling each other Brexiters and Remainers.
Yeah, but I mean, I also continue to make the case, right, that all of the things that we want to stay in the EU for, right, like protections for consumers, for the environment, for employees, like things like the working time directive. Like there's loads of stuff, right? But there's nothing, like absolutely nothing on this planet preventing us from having all those protections and not being in the EU. We just have to elect a government. Yeah, I know it's like, but like it is 100% in the hands of the people of this country to have a government that does not do that. And perhaps, honestly, we've been protected from the realities of what some of our more ideologically extreme politicians actually wanted to do to this country because of the EU. And perhaps in order to rid ourselves of some of these politicians and some of these horrendous ideas in a developed and progressive society, perhaps we need to leave the EU for people to see and witness what they actually want. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I see where you're coming from. Like, so you like lift up the curtain, show them how bad shit could be, and then they go, "Oh, okay, right."
Yeah, it's like, okay, so now we need to elect some adults.
Yeah.
You know, instead of relying on the EU to pick up, it's almost like abdicating responsibility of needing to pick politicians that will do things for the good of the country by relying upon the EU to do it for us.
So here's a question for you: would you put your trust and faith in either of the main political parties in this country to deliver those sorts of protections?
No.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily either. I mean, I was asking a little bit about Starmer because sometimes I think on Twitter it's easy to box people up as being like, oh, well, he's supporting Labour as they are now, so therefore he must fucking love Kier Starmer. That is fundamentally not the case with me. I see him as the least worst option. There are just 2 or 3 names in the Labour Party I would personally rather see as their leader. But in order to eject the Tories from power, who I see as an endlessly sociopathic, self-serving entity, who are only out to enrich themselves, have achieved absolutely nothing of any value in the last 12 years. I struggle to think of one fucking policy that they've named, rolled out, and has benefited people. Now, you might be able to cling to the Brexit vote and go, actually, broadly speaking, that's a positive or could be a positive.
Yeah, but that's a long-term positive for me. It's not it's not something they can take credit for.
Right, so...
Because they, like, I actually give the people credit for it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's an important distinction also to make, is that it was not necessarily, although, you know, Labour would like to portray it as the Tory Brexit or the Conservative Party's Brexit, there's a huge Northern and Red Wall element to it also, right? But anyway, going back to my point about the Tories and Labour, would we trust them to wrap protections around society in the way that we traditionally associate with the EU? I trust Labour, I trust Kier Starmer's Labour more than the Conservatives to implement those kind of protections. But yeah, it's interesting. Like when you were talking about the 12 pledges, what's to say? And I asked somebody this on my show the other day. Like, what's to say that I know everyone calls him Tory light and Kier Starmer's a Tory and everything. What's to say he's not actually playing a chess game here?
Okay.
It's incredibly cynical, and he's just cozying up to the centre to win over those extra few like home counties constituencies. He gets in power, and then he goes, right, lads, I'm in. Now we
pulls off the mask and it's John McDonnell.
It's like, now we wheel out the fluffy liberal stuff, like, and then everyone's like, I thought you were a prick, but actually, yeah, you're right. Like, could that be the case? Would you love him then?
I mean, it would depend what he did.
Yeah.
It would depend whether the fluffy liberal stuff that you're talking about was things that were actually going to do anything, or whether he spent 3 years campaigning about, you know, gendered bathrooms. And like, because I feel like the left gets caught up in so much of this stuff that means so little to so few people. And instead of just like worrying about people who can't afford to feed their fucking kids, you know, worrying about people who who are having to work 3 jobs in order to get by. Worrying about people whose fucking food bill has gone up 50% in the last year. Like, it seems to me that like that he should be hammering the Tories on that every fucking day. I genuinely think if he meant it and he actually cared about the people of this country, that it would show. Because there's being like the soft sort of quiet dude. There's like people who are reserved and maybe don't get like that fired up and emotional. And I've seen him talk passionately about things before.
Yeah.
And it rings like a career politician in my ears.
Right.
That's what it sounds like to me. And it doesn't sound like someone who actually gives a fuck about people. Because I think there's a lot of people in this country that are really fucking hurting.
Yeah.
And struggling.
Yeah.
And it pains me to watch the joy, especially from a lot of the mainstream of politics, that are pleased that they've got their Kier versus Rishi, they've got their PMQs, couple of stabs each way, they can talk about things, it's business as usual. And in the rest of the fucking country, it's not business as usual, man.
Yeah.
And that's why I just see him as more of the same. I don't see him solving any of the major problems that I was talking. Like, the financialization is one of them, like closing the tax havens. But most of all, just like trying to give people like a job that pays.
Yeah.
And it pays them enough to not struggle.
Yeah.
And it's such a fucking underrated part of politics. And you wonder why every fucking totalitarian dictator that ever arrives on the scene promises people some variation of bread and work. Like, it's because people are very simple in fucking troubled times. That's what they want.
Yeah.
They want stability and the ability to eat.
And in the absence of somebody saying that stuff, quite a dangerous place to be in politically, because if he isn't saying that stuff, what's to say somebody else coming up who's more of a radical on either the far left or the far right starts over-promising, starts saying, I can do this, I can do that, and then once they get in, all fucking hell breaks loose.
Yeah. Well, this is how someone like Farage gets elected.
Yeah.
Because like
it's desperation, it's fear.
He's saying the right things in some areas.
Yeah.
Then people can overlook the more abhorrent or repulsive parts of some of the stuff he said and done.
Well, that's the really important point of it is that it, like, you don't have to agree with the racist shit that these people come out with. You just have to believe that when they say, I can fix this better than he can. He's not taking you seriously. I will give you a roof over your head. Like, don't you remember the good old days when a house was only like 3 times your salary? I can bring us back to that. All you have to believe is that shit. Buy a ticket for that show. And then the racism and the horrible shit comes along with it.
Yeah. Because it's like, oh man, I'm going to forget the name of the guy. He runs Migration Watch UK, right? And I had him on the show. And he was like, there was something he said to me. It was something like some asylum seekers have been housed in a hotel in some village or town that he was talking about. I can't remember what it was. And he was just like, people in my village have been waiting, or my town have been waiting like 3 months for a GP's appointment. And people have come here looking for asylum in a hotel. Yeah. And they've got access to medical care immediately, right? And it's like, okay, so people are fleeing a war that we've started.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Like, we've got to pay some cost for that, right? And the asylum system set up after 1945 in order to make sure that we would always be ready so that we would never see a repeat of the atrocities of the Second World War, right? Mm-hmm. All completely valid things. Is his point about the people waiting in the village not being able to get medical care? Like, you can't tell him he's wrong. You can't be like, well, that's like too bad for the people in that village. And like the thing I kept saying to him was like, look, these two don't have to be mutually exclusive, right? But at the minute, the government and the way it's being played is making it out to seem like it's mutually exclusive. And then people, when it's not pointed out that they have maybe a point, or that maybe both should be taken care of, if you don't say that, then they're just like, well, you don't care about us.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the conversation that Kier Starmer and no one will have. And that's why people will vote for Nigel Farage.
Yeah, yeah. But it's also like whenever I get into that conversation, I'm always like who was it? Somebody was tweeting about this the other day. Can't remember who the fuck it was now. Anyway, it's not important. They were saying a similar thing, right? People can't get an appointment at the GP. People can't get social housing. The schools are full. All of that stuff. So why are we letting more immigrants in? Where are all these asylum seekers coming from? Etc. Etc. And I was like, what you're doing is actually you're campaigning about an underfunded system. Like the asylum system needs more funding. The hospital needs more funding. The population grows, but as the population grows, more people go into work, more people are earning money, more people pay tax, the tax coffers are more full. If those tax coffers don't cover the public services of the population that has raised, someone somewhere is avoiding tax. Like it is that simple. Like the population goes to like 65 million. More people are working. The population goes to 70 million, 75 million. More people are working. There should be sufficient money that's coming in through all of those channels to support the country. It's just a few ideological fuckers in Whitehall who are like, well, you know, maybe we don't need an extra hospital in that town. Maybe, you know, they've got one in the next town a lot. Maybe we'll just savage a few ambulances. Like, do we need an extra classroom in that school? No, we'll just savage. And people fall for this shit again and again. They go like, well, yeah, maybe if we do close a hospital, maybe my taxes will go down. Fucking no, your taxes aren't going anywhere because we're fucking exporting like debt is our biggest export. Your tax money goes on that. They savage these public services. Oh god, winds me up.
Yeah, and it's the other thing again. Kier Starmer, we'll talk about it. Like they want to continually talk about a wealth tax, right?
Yeah,
and I'm like, bro, just close the fucking tax loopholes.
Yeah.
Like literally, just you see if the people who were meant to pay tax paid the tax they were meant to fucking pay.
Yeah.
We wouldn't need to talk about this shit.
Yeah.
There would be like the amount of money that is like lost offshore. Like the estimates vary considerably, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But even on the low end, like it dwarfs like the benefit fraud.
Oh yeah.
By like orders of magnitude.
Yeah,
right?
It's in hundreds of billions in terms of like tax avoidance, both corporate and like offshoring your own money. It is an insane problem versus what you're alluding to there, which is, you know, somebody signs up for a benefit that they're not actually entitled to, or somebody's on the dole for longer than they should have been. Yeah. I'm sure
which
that
obviously we
stuff
don't want
happens.
anyway.
Yeah.
But like come on. Perspective.
Yeah.
But again, do you know why fucking Kier Starmer will say shit? It's because he is bought by the same people that the Tories are bought by.
Yeah.
You know, and this is why I keep Rick right. Here's what's going to happen. If you vote for, not even you, if the country collectively elects a Kier Starmer Labour government, here's what's going to happen. They're going to maybe change a couple things. Maybe they pump a little bit more money into the NHS, right?
Yeah.
We get like the strikes that we've seen at the minute. They're not going to go away because it's quite clear that the Labour front bench are like, fuck you and your strikes.
Yeah.
They've been barred from joining picket lines. The Labour Party.
Okay, so it is. I do have some sympathy with the rule that they shouldn't be on the picket lines. I know it's symbolic. I know it's a good thing to have Labour on side with that. But I have some sympathy with the idea that they are not in government yet. Now, when they are in government,
so they have no strings and no ties where they're going, well, you know, we can't make that decision because, you know, my hands are tied because we've already agreed to this budgetary decision. No, they have the free and open sky, or you know, they can say whatever they want. Look, they take a lesson from the Republicans in America. They just say whatever they want.
They do the media rounds. They go out. They give their side of things in the channels that are open to them. So you'll get like an Emily Thornberry or an Angela Rayner on the morning rounds, and they will say, we fully support the strikers. We are behind them. We think it's disgusting that they haven't had a pay rise for however long. But there's an element of
lip service, man. It's the equivalent of the fucking England team deciding they weren't going to wear the One Love fucking bands. They were like, oh, we'll do our thing because, like, you know, we love these, you know, gestures, and then they they got told they were going to get yellow cards, maybe,
But
and they were
it's
like,
all-
"Oh, fuck it."
it's all gestures, though, isn't it?
It's all gestures. I want someone who's going to do something.
But here you are asking for them to go on the front line with the picket line.
Yeah,
but that's,
fucking do something.
but that's
Appear
not
on
doing
it.
anything either. They're, the way that they
You
affect...
telling me that Mick Lynch hasn't changed people's
Oh,
opinions?
Mick Lynch,
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly.
And
the
the
politicians
union
get
and the
down there
strikes.
and say the same things he said, because they should be saying, like, what Mick Lynch is presenting is not hardcore left wing at all. He's
No.
being very reasonable. That's where the Labour Party should be.
Good for him. I'm supportive of Mick Lynch, great. But I just think where... Say, you will not like this, but where professional politicians affect change and message and win people over is through the media. So for them to, let's say that Angela Rayner decided to go on the picket line instead of being on LBC and the BBC that night, telling 10 million people why it was important that rail workers got a raise. There's just more political benefit to her getting that message out via the media than standing at a protest march. I understand how it's important, the symbolism for somebody in Labour to be there, present, supporting them. But I do understand why it's important for them to, as a professional front bench, to be like, hang on, let's let the Tories own this fuck up. Why are Labour not on the front thing? Because it's like, we're not in charge. Like, there's not... You know, I kind of... I see where you're coming from, but I see where they're coming from too.
No, I do see where they're coming from. But I don't know, man. It just feels like they're not a real opposition. That's what it feels like. And people said that about Jeremy Corbyn's rate, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? Listen to what he says."
Yeah.
But when you listen to Kier Starmer, like, they just half the stuff the Tories does, he's like, "It's a good choice. Good decision. Good work, guys. Good work."
Do
You know,
think...
maybe you could have done this thing a little differently, but 9 out of 10,
Yeah.
very good. Congratulations.
I will say this, right? So I also think Starmer doesn't listen enough to the all quarters of his party, really.
Like 90% of his membership wants PR.
I think they've said like they voted for PR.
Yeah,
So
he said it's not going to be. He said it's a second or third term issue.
well, we'll see about that. I mean, I don't.
So you got to elect him, then you got to elect him again, and then he might do something about it.
Now, if and when Labour get in, I cannot see PR being front and centre of people like me. Like people love to say shit like, "Oh, well, once Labour get in, like, are you going to shut your account? Like, are you going to stop doing videos and stuff?" I'm like, no, like, it's not so like, once they're in, I will hold them to account, and if they don't start putting wheels in motion to implement PR. There will be, I mean, look, I'm just a small fish, but like people like Femi will be fucking mauling them. Like I don't think they can wriggle their way out of it. And from what I hear from internally in Labour, it is being openly discussed in terms of how it could be put in properly. I don't know if maybe the reason that and sorry to keep going back to media stuff, but I don't know if maybe the reason that they don't talk about it openly and they don't commit to it openly is because it would be portrayed by the right-wing press as radical communist fucking conspiracy nonsense. They'd be like, he's trying to upend Parliament. Like, he would be mauled for it. It's much safer and cynicaler for him to, play the safe card, I think, and say, second or third term,
Well, I mean, Tony Blair managed to get away with reforming the Lords.
He said he was going to reform the Lords. What did he
did.
do?
He got rid of 698 of the hereditary peers.
That's right, yeah.
And the rest of them are just going to sort of die out eventually.
Yeah. And Labour said last week they were going to get rid of... Didn't they say they're going to reform the House of
Yeah.
Lords as well? You don't buy it.
I mean, it's like...
He's
it's like
damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't.
No. Again, priorities, mate.
Yeah.
Lovely. I'm delighted that you have a plan to reform the second chamber.
Right,
Fantastic.
right.
That's great. I like that. That's
Yeah.
proactive. Fucking say something about the real issues.
Yeah, I get you. Okay,
Come out hardcore and go, we're going to close the tax havens. There will be no more tax evading. This is a fair and just government for a fair and just country.
Yeah. And private schools?
Go for it. I mean, probably shouldn't be charities.
Yeah.
In fact, definitely shouldn't be charities. You want to make the case for the free market and how people should be free to go and do that? Sweet. Make them pay tax.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then, okay, so here's my idea. So let me run this by you. This is how I think he should solve the sort of factionalism and address some of the issues that wind you up and wind me up and everyone else out there. Do you think he should sort of have, like, we all accept that he's not in touch with every part of Labour and he doesn't represent all the concerns of Labour.
No.
Should he have a very public, like 3 or 4, like number 2s, if you like? One person that represents Red Wall / immigration, Brexit, like related issues. One person that represents the city and financial services and jobs. One person that represents, I don't know, home counties, centrist kind of vote. Like someone like that. And then like a Mick Lynch over here, like where he sits down once or twice a week with all of them and they all communicate what the concerns are from their quarters of Labour, and then he's in a position to go, cool. I've like when he goes for a press conference and they say, you know, there's word that you're losing touch with the workers, with former factory workers up in northern constituencies. Mm-hmm. He can then say he's in a great position then to say, you know, I sat down with X yesterday. We talked specifically about that, and here's my plan. Like.
That's a great idea.
You think something like that would work?
Definitely. Like, I am way more centrist than it may seem.
You fucking prick. No.
Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm not, like, okay, Jeremy Corbyn would probably be the only politician that I've seen in Britain that I trusted.
Right.
Possibly. There's probably a few others, but there was the main one.
Okay.
So, but like, I don't feel like they don't need to come in with like a hardcore like fucking like neo-Marxist agenda for me to be pleased, right? They need to come in and just like there's, and I keep coming back to these like things that are like hardcore problems for Britain. Some politician for me needs to stand up and say, hey, I've seen these issues. Like we need to deal with them. Like there's loads of them, and none of them are prepared to talk about it. Like the other one is and it's wrapped up in the entire. It's the massive elephant inside the balloon of the immigration debate. Is the birth rate and the way we train and educate the next generation. It's like we wouldn't need to be shipping in nurses from all around the world if we decided to fucking train them ourselves.
Yeah,
we wouldn't be struggling to recruit nurses even into the training programs if we hadn't cut their bursary.
Yeah.
Like we wouldn't be dealing with like talking about needing immigration because of the ever expanding like elderly population.
Yeah.
If the replacement rate of people having kids was like at 2 or whatever, or at 1, whatever it's meant to be. I can't remember if it's 2 or 1, but like we're considerably below it. We're about 30% below it, and it's like, why don't people have kids? Because they don't feel secure. They can't buy a house. They can't settle down. You know, many reasons. Yeah, but but no one is talking about this as like an actual problem, because it is going to be a monstrous problem in the next 30 years.
Yeah,
and this is why I'm not interested anymore in like bit part like tiny change, because like we either like make a massive recorrection of course now, or there's like just madness and revolution down the road.
Yeah.
And if we elect Kier Starmer, he does makes no real change. In 5 years' time, do you know what we get again? The fucking Tories.
Oh yeah, yeah. I would say there's an excellent chance of that happening, because what will happen is people will lend their vote to Labour on the basis that they're fed up with the corruption, the lying, the incompetence. They will associate Brexit and COVID and furlough and high taxes with the Tories, and then they will say, well, you know, Labour, all about the NHS, all about public services. I'd quite like a GP appointment. You know, I'd like my kids' classroom to be a little bit less full. Let's lend our vote to Kier Starmer's Labour. And they'll ride in on a wave of positivity and fail spectacularly to deliver on that positivity to the level that people like. It will be like another Blair moment, like you know, things can only get better, and he'll walk on the stage, and it will be like, you know, it's what was it he said as he came on the stage? He was like, a new dawn has arrived, has it not? Or something like that. And people will be drunk on all this positivity. But debt is so fucking high, and the markets dictate what we can do in terms of like printing a load of money and funding. They won't be able to correct the problems that the Tories have created. It's certainly not in one term. And so the problems will get worse, and then people will be like, well, hang on a second, I voted Labour because I thought it was going to be all fucking rainbows and blowjobs. But it's like, turns out it's just the so. Oh, well, I'll just go back to the Tories then, because I'd rather have my leg chewed off by a crocodile that said he was a crocodile than somebody who dressed up like a cute pony and then ended up buying. Like, at least I know that this crocodile is a sociopath. Like, I feel then I'm right about it. You know, it's a really clumsy metaphor, but
No, but you're right. Like, the devil, you know.
yeah, that's exactly it.
People would be like, well, at least they're saying that's what they're gonna do.
Yeah, like there's some comfort in, as you're being stabbed to death by a sociopath who you knew was a sociopath, at least as you're being stabbed, you can be like, at least I was right.
Yeah, whilst you're getting eaten after that questionable Tinder day,
Yeah.
you're, well, he did have cannibal in his bio. I don't know what I expected. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I just hoped he was nice. Yeah.
anyway, the last thing I want to chat to you about
Sure.
was, and this will be interesting actually, was the Twitter, takeover madness, new plan, all this. What do you think? How's it been going? Like, what have you made of it so far?
So I work in tech. I mentioned that earlier. I think Elon Musk is probably, so first off, he's obviously he's a smart guy and he's got a relatively successful track record behind him.
Yeah.
Relative to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love the people being like, he's an idiot. And it's like, really? Like,
Yeah.
he might have done some stupid shit here with Twitter, but like, I don't know
Yeah.
if I'd say he's an idiot.
I mean, there's some outright ridiculous behaviour that's gone on in the last month or so.
Oh, yeah.
Like the launch of Twitter Blue, allowing people to be verified, but giving them no requirement to provide verification documents, thereby allowing anyone to verify themselves as anyone. Like the most famous example was, I think a couple of weeks ago, somebody verified and then changed their name to Tony Blair, put a picture of Tony Blair up, and then put the tweet out saying, "I miss killing Iraqi."
Oh my God, I didn't see that.
And then somebody did the same thing with the George Bush. The George Bush reply tweeted it to it, saying, "Me too, lol." Right? Now this is dark shit, and it's
amazing.
Yes, it's dark and it's funny, but like, I have a dark sense of humor. I can see the humor in it. I know it's disgusting, but let's crack on. Who could not see that problem? Fucking galloping towards them. Like, oh yeah, anyone can verify for like $8. Really? Anyone can verify? Yeah, be fine. Yeah, we'll get loads of money in. Right, okay. Sure there's no downsides to this? Nah. And so there's stuff like that. And then he's asked his developers to print out their code reviews, like email his code reviews to him, which, as a guy who reviews code, I'm like, what? Like, you have a whole thing called GitHub for this, like where somebody checks their code in and you can look like, why is it this theatrical thing of like, I want you to email, you've got to walk in here with your printed out code and we're going to go through it like it's really weird.
I want you to write it out
Yeah.
and fax it to me.
But then there's some other stuff. Like, I do think there's a bloated middle management layer to a lot of these companies. I do think they're run like headless chickens. When I asked you earlier about, like, are you naturally suspicious about things? I was sort of going to go on to, like, I've worked for about 3 or 4 big organizations. And one of the reasons I'm not so naturally suspicious, and I don't really buy into conspiracies much, is in these big organizations, of which some of these conspiracies would have to take the form of a big organization. They're fucking chaos. Like, nothing is done on time. People are scared to tell each other if they fuck something up, so other things fuck up in turn. Two people think that they're doing a different job, but then they end up doing the same job. Things are, it's just chaos. Like, organizations are run awfully, and I think for conspiracies to run as seamlessly and perfectly as they would have to is a stretch for me. Anyway, to bring it back to Twitter, I guess my broad take on it is that it's been pretty funny
It's definitely been funny.
I don't think it's going to work particularly well for him.
In what way? Because I've been trying to figure out what way I think it's going to go.
Well, I think if they relaunch Twitter Blue and ask people to provide documents, that will tidy up a lot of the misinformation and bots like a lot of the problems I think that we had around the Trump vote and the Brexit vote, I think stemmed from Russian bots and misinformation. I think if we could clean up the user base in Twitter, it would be good. Um, I always said, like, if you want to use Twitter anonymously, and there's loads of people who do for valid reasons, that's fine. That's your right. But my right, in turn, is that I don't think I should have, like, if you want to be anonymous, I shouldn't have to see you. Like, that is, what could be more anonymous than that? But it's like, it's my right to internet safety that I shouldn't have to, if I can tick a button or click the toggle, I shouldn't have to see unverified accounts that are where they say they are and are who they say they are. And I think you could clean up a lot of the problems on Twitter by allowing people like me to just inhabit a safe online presence and not have to deal with weird trolley accounts and pylons and shit. Like, so I think if you put SIN protections like that, it could improve it. But I don't think, like, 44 billion, man, is a big chunk of other people's money. And I just can't see Twitter becoming that profitable where, like, he can either pay that money back or people can make money out of the stake that they took.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet either. The video streaming thing is going to be very interesting. Because they're talking about two things. They've said that they're gonna expand the video hosting stuff to 2 hours max for Twitter Blue people.
Cool.
Up to 40 gigabytes.
Yeah.
2 hours of 40 gigabytes. And then there's talk about Twitter payments. So what I assume is now going to happen is that there's going to be a lot more video content going to be on Twitter. I assume that's going to form like a new tab or something in it.
Yeah.
And I think that they will then start taking payments, tips for creators. And then Twitter will scrape some of the money from that.
Yeah.
And so I think that will form quite a substantial new revenue stream for them. And I also think that they've got a jump on YouTube at that point. Because there's been Rumble and Odyssey sort of like plugging away, and brand new YouTube as well, I gotta say, for Sonny Polton.
Yeah.
But they've been sort of chugging away these three as like the ones that are going to replace YouTube. And I think Odyssey has potentially the best chance.
Right.
I'm not sure. I don't use Rumble a whole lot, so it's hard to tell. I know there's a lot of stuff on Rumble.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with them.
But Odyssey's like a blockchain based one. I'm actually on. I have Odyssey as well. I've like all my podcasts are on Odyssey as well. But it's because it rips straight from YouTube, and then posts all your stuff from your YouTube channel on your Odyssey channel.
Okay.
And then you can like upload stuff specifically only there if you don't want it to be on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then they have they've their own token that people can tip you in. And like give you things. So I've got, I don't know, like 80 quid's worth of tips just from people watching.
Yeah.
Because you generate the tokens by watching videos, and you get reward for watching it, and then you can give it to like creators, and then at some point they can cash out if they get enough that is worth it.
Yeah.
Which I think is a cool idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
It requires your token to be worth something, which is why I don't think Twitter will create their own one. I assume they'll just piggyback onto Bitcoin or probably Dogecoin, which would be quite entertaining.
Yeah.
But
then where does the free speech stuff fit into it?
This is why I think they got the jump on YouTube, because YouTube has become a place where no one knows what they're allowed to say. Like, I find it very difficult to discuss the lab leak theory from regarding the origin of COVID.
Did you get strikes for it?
I didn't get strikes,
right?
But I was very, very concerned I would get strikes.
Right.
I was talking to people who were very seriously investigating the subject, not some fucking nutcase. Like people with qualifications who took a long time to speak to a lot of smart people. Shari Markson, for example, who wrote the book What Really Happened in Wuhan. Former, like, a couple of different like epidemiologists who were looking at like the structure of it.
Yeah.
And it was just like, right, what can we say? Because YouTube are so opaque about what is and isn't okay. And that just, I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy wondering, because like I'm not out here trying to claim like I know what I'm talking about. I'm not out here trying to claim that the person opposite me is definitely 100% right about anything ever.
Yeah.
Right? What I'm trying to do is like find smart people to discuss things that are interesting to me, and that I think I think the origin of COVID is a huge fucking
Yeah,
deal.
yeah.
Like, it shut down the world for 2 years. I think we should be very seriously being very pissed at the Chinese.
Yeah. So okay, but
So-
then if you peel this onion a little, right?
Yeah.
So I don't like being kept in the dark either. If I upload a video to YouTube and it's got, let's say it's got some proof on it or something of substance that suggests that the lab leak theory, that there's a lot of what's the word, a lot of
Evidence.
credence to it, or,
Yeah.
right? And then it picks up, it gains traction, goes on the front of the Independence website, Metro blast it out, Fox News pick it up, Tucker Carlson starts talking about it, then it's the subject of the Tonight Show. It bleeds out into the pop culture consensus. Everyone is talking about, like, oh fuck, did you see that video? Oh yeah, and it had a scientist on there and it talked to... Suddenly this is a geopolitical issue, and you've got Biden talking to President Xi, and the two of them are so, like, the US, China, the UK, China, they're so inextricably linked through finance, through, like, how comfortable would you be letting something like that bubble up? Because I've got to be honest, I have questions also around that. I think there's a lot of, like, coincidences and strange denials and black spots.
You mean like when the Chinese government went in September 2019 and just destroyed everything in the lab and destroyed all the evidence?
And there was they checked the traffic going in and out of that facility, and I think it was about a month or 6 weeks before the whole shit blew up, there was some incident that took place there where no one was allowed in or out, and they've never explained that.
And they never found any trace of COVID or anything like anything similar in any bat in Wuhan or pangolin.
Yeah.
No live animal, like, possible transmission thing was found ever.
Yeah.
Moderna, this is the fucking stupid one, right? Moderna were part of, like, funding some of the gain of function research and stuff on different coronaviruses. And it's like innocuous, fine. Like, companies do that.
Yeah.
Part of one of the things that they had patented, which from 2015, this sequence, right, that they have patented.
Yeah.
And it would make sense if pharmaceutical companies are working in this area and then other scientists are coming along and, like, doing different experiments based on things. It doesn't have to be some stupid monster conspiracy that Moderna have created COVID and then released it for the profit, right? But there's a sequence in there that's identical to this Moderna patent.
Yeah.
There's a 1 in 3 billion chance that that's a coincidence.
Yeah.
And it's just like, seems like they were working on it at that lab.
But then you have
seems like,
to believe that is what happened. Firstly, you have to believe that they would be like, nobody will spot this. This could be the biggest fucking pandemic.
That. Like, what I think is, like, what happened is that they were working on gain of function research at this lab, which they were.
Yeah.
I've spoken to the whistleblowers personally.
Yeah.
Seemed like really smart and concerned people. They were working on bat coronaviruses and making them more infectious to humans, especially using both live bats and genetically engineered mice whose lungs are meant to be more like humans.
Right.
They're working on coronaviruses there, with a place that had safety violations, where they were storing a whole bunch of different viruses. That's right beside where the outbreak happens, where they went in and stopped, where the Chinese government went in, destroyed a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Refused to answer any questions.
Yeah.
It's like, I shouldn't be worried about being banned from YouTube for talking about that.
Yeah.
To bring it back to where we were at.
But
it's like, and even if I'm wrong,
yeah,
I shouldn't be banned for talking about that.
So I agree.
Because I could still be wrong. Yeah. Someone might find the fucking bat, I think, like, so morally, ethically, I think you have a right to ask those questions. And I wonder a lot about that stuff. I'm like, I think on the balance of probabilities, there's probably a 60-40 chance that something dodgy happened and that we absolutely don't know the full extent of it. And we probably won't, because to know that would bubble up into a huge geopolitical problem that could result in some sort of nuclear war. And I think on the US side and within the UK and the EU, I think people way, way smarter than me probably fucking know that. Decided to not rock the boat.
Yeah. But to piss off China and to fundamentally destabilize the world, I think they're looking at it like, let's just fuck it. Like, maybe we leave this one for the history books for like 50 years time. Somebody can blow the lid on it. But like for now, you know. But like, and I'm happy to take that bullet to not talk about it on YouTube. I'm happy to live in blissful ignorance if it keeps the world alive, because I'm a fucking good guy.
Oh, I mean, you got a point. Maybe I'm causing, fucking.
You're such a troublemaker.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
But like, to your point, what you were saying about how it like spreads out, it could end up on the Independent and the Metro and then on Fox News. It's like, all those people should be doing their due diligence, all of them. That's the state of journalism. It happened innumerable times over the past 5-10 years.
Yeah.
A story blows up based on nothing. Nobody checks it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's on like mainstream news. And
Well, that's a different problem. I mean, that's the nature of like, clickable news.
But that's the lack of their own due diligence.
Yeah.
Every single, like, you get a story from some other place, you should be going to check it.
Yeah. I mean, I've had stories I have made up that I this is going back a few years now. I'll probably get myself in trouble for saying this. But,
don't worry.
I made a Twitter account. It was about 2015, it must have been, called James Conwyn MP. And he was like, I just took a picture of Google Images of a sort of, an old grey-haired white guy, looked like a Tory. And I created this. And there was a story in the news that day about how a load of wealthy people's savings accounts had leaked. And they were all embarrassed about it, but they were angry that their savings account had been... So I put this sort of flippant tweet out saying, why is everyone ranting about rich people's savings? This is pure hypocrisy. You never see people ranting about poor people's savings, right? And I'm I'm being stupid and ironic, and I'm, because obviously poor people don't have fucking savings. But this is exactly the sort of thing that a detached, arrogant Tory MP would come out with. So I put this thing out there, and it fucking exploded. And I'm off busy working over here. I came back to it a couple of hours later, and it was it's just anger, like, directed at this made up thing. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is because the next day in City AM and fucking there was another one, I can't remember who it was now, and then at the end of the week it went on like have I got news for you? Like, click as though it was a real person.
No.
I was like, fucking hell, like, does nobody check anything anymore? Not even researchers at the BBC are like, should we just check if this guy's like real?
Yes, they should.
Yeah.
This is like, but then I would just say, well, these outlets deserve to be embarrassed, to lose their reputation.
Yeah. Well, they should have a 3 strikes and they're out rule. It should be like, if I can show you 3 examples in our like regulator meeting catch up that we do 3 times a year, say, if I can show you 3 examples of where you haven't fact checked something and you've just fucking retailed it out.
No, that should be fine. You should have to do public retractions. Because the world in news is fast, man. People are going to get shit wrong.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, but not 3 times in like a quarter. Really?
I'd say so.
Doesn't that just instill like a greater responsibility on them though?
Retractions. Here's where we were wrong.
Yeah.
It would instill so much fucking trust.
Like front page?
Yeah. Go for it. I mean, maybe don't make them put it on the front page.
I was going to go like fire breathe, like 3 times. Withdraw license. You're no longer a newspaper. You're a fucking pamphlet now.
Yeah, but you see, the problem with that is then it's like, look, I always just like imagine this. Okay, right, current government, Tories, horrible, corrupt cunts, right? They would stack the board with everyone that, like, then you would see a left-wing paper just license removed immediately for 3 tiny innocuous things.
Yeah.
It would be abused.
Well, I think the left-wing paper, maybe I'm biased. I am biased. But maybe the left-wing papers are, like, typically more trustworthy.
Yeah, 100%. Like, but that's not how it would like be used.
Yeah.
Do you know? Like, they would. It'd be like right, okay. The amount of headlines that I've seen talking about how Britain is in a uniquely awful position because of Brexit right now, and I'm just like, you can't say that. You just
right.
You, like, people are talking like, because they're like, oh, the inflation and the cost of living crisis is because of Brexit.
Yeah.
And I'd just be like, go to Europe, go visit them, like, just go ask them, how's the inflation, lads?
Yeah.
Most of Europe are doing worse than us on this.
Right.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Germany's food price inflation is over 20% at the minute, man.
But it's
So my point is that, like,
okay.
there's definitely like, you can make arguments to say, okay, Brexit has caused this to be worse, right? But what 3 Tories sitting on that board that look at this would say, they'd be like, well, you know, that's not true. Well, that's a strike.
Yeah.
You know, they would use it.
I guess it needs to go like right up to the top of a Labour government. You would need somebody like the Secretary of State for Media and Culture or whatever to say, like, right, when these boards are populated by ex-editors or people with investments in that media company, like, there has to be oversight of those. Like, you can't just...
Who polices the police? Yeah, but then it just like bubbles out. Like, for me, it's just like, we have to just let it go and allow people to figure out who's trustworthy.
Yeah. I mean, I think it should just be me. I should just have oversight. That would solve it all. I'll try to be fair, but I can't promise everything, you know.
What is it that? We'll finish on this because we're almost done with the room. Neil Brennan, fantastic comedian. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast there recently, and I always watch when it pops up Neil Brennan. I'm always like straight in him. Yeah. The 3 I'm always immediately straight in. Him, Duncan Trussell. Don't know if you, the guy that did, Duncan Trussell. I don't know what it is. It's him, Duncan Trussell, and Tim Dillon are the 3 most brilliant guests that Joe Rogan ever has. I don't know why. They just make the funniest and best conversation.
Yeah.
But Neil Brennan was saying, we all agree that there should be a council that decides what the truth is.
Yeah.
The only problem is none of us can agree who goes on that council.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a point. As do you about like Trussell and Tim Dillon. Yeah, love them. I haven't checked out much of Neil Brennan's stuff. I might have to.
I don't think I've ever seen, like, I remember I saw him. He definitely used to be one of those like sort of periodic contributors in The Daily Show.
Okay, yeah.
But I don't think I've ever watched any of his stand-up, seen him in anything apart from on The Daily Show and on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Yeah.
But he's just, I can't remember why, but like years ago, I just watched a random episode with him on it.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, oh man, this is a guest.
Yeah.
Because he, I don't know, he's just a great, he's great, like, he's a great opposing force for Rogan. Like, sometimes if he gets people that are super, super hard in some direction that he agrees with, he like follows them down the path.
Yeah.
And I think the best episodes that he does are ones where he's pushing people and who like, disagree with him on things.
Yeah.
And Neil Brennan does that in a really great way. So, yeah, gotta say. The last, I don't remember which number it was, like 1905 or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got to finish. So, man, do you want to plug any of your stuff, podcast?
Yeah, sure. So, Aid Thompsin and Other Disappointments is my show. I do one on a Wednesday normally. It's a solo one where it's just me roasting and ripping the news. And then normally I have a guest on a Friday night and we talk about whatever's gone on that week or their speciality. It tends to sort of vary from academics to journalists to, just a little bit of a mix of everything.
Awesome. Well, people check that out. Links will be in the description below. Thanks very much, man.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for making it right the way to the end of the podcast. I love that you tuned in this long. Do me a favor, hit subscribe because 80% of you bastards are not subscribing, but you're watching my videos. See you next time. So, whenever I'd be out for a walk, whenever I was going to cook dinner, whenever I was doing cleaning, I always used to spend my time listening to music. And I still really enjoy listening to a lot of music. But what I've discovered is that I can consume so many more books when I'm using something like Open Audible. It's a fantastic, fantastic way for me to make my way through all the things I have to read for this podcast, for things I want to read for fun. That's like fiction and non-fiction. Sometimes I actually prefer fiction when it's being read to me. I like someone doing the voices, like someone, really getting into the characters. In the case of both fiction and non-fiction, it allows me to spend way more time visualizing what I'm reading. So I can think more about the ideas, I can think more about the scenes that people are trying to paint, and ultimately it just gives my brain more space to think because I'm not concentrating on the words in front of me or trying to stay focused on it. Instead, I can just sort of mindlessly get on with whatever task I'm doing and listening via Open Audible. Now, the reason Open Audible is great is because it allows me to do it straight from my desktop. I try to stay away from my phone as much as possible in order to sort of maximize my productivity because it can be a very fast way to waste half an hour. Whereas if I just open my laptop and hit play on Open Audible, I can connect it to my Bluetooth speaker and then I don't even have to go anywhere near my phone. Do you like free stuff? I'm sure you do. Well, I'm going to give away a free copy of Open Audible to one lucky person that signs up for my mailing list in the next month. Now, those of you who are already signed up, don't worry. You can be involved in the draw as well. Just give me a rating or review on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, and post it on Twitter. Send it to me via email. Respond to something I've posted on YouTube. Somewhere you can prove you've got a screenshot and I will enter you in the draw. I have to admit, I used to be a little bit of a book snob. I wouldn't even consider a Kindle, let alone an audiobook. It just felt like cheating. But that is until I tried Audible and Open Audible. Ever wonder where I find the time to read all the books that my guests have written on this show? Well, this is the answer. When I'm behind in my reading, I just jump to audiobook. Open Audible is a cross-platform audiobook manager designed for Audible users that can allow you to download, view, manage, and connect your favorite audiobooks on MP3 so that you can enjoy them across all your devices. Best of all, you can control it all from a desktop application. I'm giving away a copy of Open Audible for the entire month of November. All you have to do is sign up to my mailing list. You'll find the link in the description below, or go to openaudible.org for more information.